rise in body or spirit as we sing together.
Good morning, church. This is a singing mask, only you can't not get a good breath. So it blocks anything coming out. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces. We welcome those of you who are in the sanctuary this morning, especially the children, and those who are joining us via streaming technology. I am Haney Pearson, your service associate today. Our service leader is Brooks Lewis. Our director of music is Catherine Massey, and she is joined by the UUCLC choir. And Kelly Ingram is the religious education director. Assisting us is not Elwin Nunn, but Chris Neal Wallace on camera, and Mike, what is it? I forgot where I was. Okay, Yasko, yes, with the technical stuff. Our greeters today are Lynn Pearson, Linda Rogers, and Carol Winkler. Hospitality is offered by Hospitality, the committee. We are delighted to be with you today. Unitarian Universalism has no creed nor dogma. We are a covenant-based church, meaning that we agree to live in relationship with each other according to the Unitarian Universalist principles and our congregation's covenant of right relations. We embrace diversity in all its forms as everyone is welcome. You can learn more about our church at our website, uuchurchlc.org, and it is no longer broken. If you are visiting us today, we'd like to meet you. If you are in the sanctuary, please rise in body or spirit and introduce yourself by telling us your name and where you are from. But wait until I bring the mic to you. Do we have any visitors in the sanctuary this morning? I recognize everybody. Okay. None there? Okay, none there. I'm sorry. Oh, Lord. Okay, I am so sorry. Just, okay. Please talk into the mic.
Well, I just got here, so what am I supposed to say?
Name, where you from, how you heard about us.
Sharon Lindsay. I've lived in Las Cruces for years. I've visited in the past. I have a lot of old friends that have been here, Patsy and Clyde and the Willoughbys and VJ Bahala, and just a lot of friends that have been here over the years. So I'm visiting.
Have I overlooked anyone else? Okay. Do we have anyone joining us on Zoom? Okay, thank you very much, Chris. If you are a shy visitor but are curious about our church, please feel free to fill out a visitor's card in the lobby or leave your email in the chat box, and you'll receive the same invitations. And please join us after the service for a coffee and conversation outside of the RE building just down the breezeway, or stay on Zoom for chat rooms. We are happy to be with you today.
Good morning. Our opening words are from Molly Raymer. It's called Rites of Fall. Each year, fall waltzes in, slow and supple, her golden light illuminating the pines, her slowed rhythm tugging at our hearts and bodies, her red and brown cloak settling over the land. We are invited to yield to grace, offering up our gratitude and celebration, releasing our stored up worries and concerns into her capable hands, remembering how to let things go, how to scatter our offerings and our troubles into the winds. Now is the time to sit at the still point, to call ourselves back home, to accept her invitation to sit in the center of our very own lives and choose to recall our strength and to be held. Extend your hands into autumn. Hold your palms open. In one hand you give, in the other you receive. Trust in this balance, the ongoing cycle of change and discovery in which you move. Feel her kiss your face and fill your heart. You are strong. You are loved. You are needed. Bring your hands together, one full of grace and one full of patience. Kiss your fingertips and lay your hands against your heart, where wholeness resides and truth speaks.
Our chalice lighting, the task of the religious community, was written by Reverend Mark Morrison Reed. Reverend Morrison Reed served as co-minister of Unitarian Universalist congregations in Rochester, New York, and Toronto with his wife, the Reverend Donna Morrison Reed. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do that all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. You doing that? Okay, I got it. Please rise in body or spirit to join me in the saying of our church affirmation of covenant and singing the doxology in English and Spanish. Love is the doctrine of the church. Quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another.
The Goodbye Book by Todd Parr. It's hard to say goodbye to someone. You might not know what to feel. You might be very sad. The Goodbye Book, written by Todd Parr. The Goodbye Book by Todd Parr. It's hard to say goodbye to someone. You might not know what to feel. You might be very sad. You might be very mad. You might not feel like talking to anyone. You might just feel like hiding. Things might not seem fun anymore. You might not feel like eating. You might not feel like sleeping. You might try to stop thinking about it. You might pretend it didn't happen. You might be confused. But eventually you'll start to feel better. You will remember how you laughed. You'll remember all the fun you had. You'll have days when you feel up and days when you feel down. You'll remember all the special times. You'll remember everything you learned together. You might feel like talking to someone. You might even feel like drawing a picture. You might wonder where they went or what they are doing now. Most of all, you'll remember how much you love and miss them. You'll go on and try to be brave. And you'll remember that there will always be someone to love you and hold you tight. We all get sad when we say goodbye to someone we love. Always try to remember all the happy times you shared together. The end. Love, Todd. You might be having a lot of feelings about saying goodbye to your teachers and friends. It's okay to feel those feelings. Let's take some deep breaths in and really think about them. Let's think of all the great times we've had together and all that we've accomplished. You might be feeling sad, but we want you to know we'll be thinking about you and wishing you a healthy and happy summer. We hope to see you next year in kindergarten. We know you'll be ready. It's not goodbye, it's see you later. Love, Miss Jansen and Miss Chu.
Please rise in body or spirit as we sing number 306. Sing of living, sing of dying.
Yes. So today, for our meditation, we're going to combine it with candle lighting. So to begin with, I would like for you just to close your eyes for a minute. And today is going to be a visualization. because today we're going to be talking about contacting those who have passed. So we're going to breathe in, feeling ourselves connected to the earth. And we're going to breathe out, letting ourselves be included. I'm going to do the dinger, and we're going to sit for about 5 minutes and just contemplate, and then come up and light a candle as you wish. You may say the name of someone that you know who has passed, or you may just do this in silence, because this is about a time when we can actively, spiritually, actually contact those who have passed. Take another breath in, pulling up from the earth. Looking up to the sky. Breathing out, we renew our connection, the place in between.
This morning's reading, The Sacred Hoop, told by Nicholas Black Elk in Lakota, translated by his son Ben Black Elk, recorded and organized by Enid Neilhart, daughter of John G. Neilhart, who wrote the book Black Elk Sings. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in the sacred manner the shape of all things of the Spirit and the shapes, as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that make one circle, wide as daylight and starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy.
So this is the time of year when things really come into balance. Twice during the year, there is perfect balance, and we can participate in it. This time is known as Samhain. It's my people's day. Celtic, Irish, to the core, that's me. And it's celebrated from sunrise on October the 31st through sunset on November the 1st. It's the close of the pagan year and the start of the witches' new year. Traditionally, this is the time between the present and the past, the living and the dead. It's known as the thinning of the veil. It allows communication between those alive and their beloveds who have died. We honor and remember our ancestors and inform our descendants of their connection with the past. We show family pictures. We talk about grandparents and great-grandparents and aunts and great-aunts and other people in our lives who have died. We tell our children about this. We share with them so that they can feel their connection to the greater whole. It's the beginning of winter and a descent into deeper, longer nights, leading up to the longest night in December. It's the last of the harvests and the clearing of last year's crops and the preparation of foods through preserving, drying, canning, and the third slaughter of animals with salting or drying or freezing of the meat. It's the time to prepare for the winter to come. I was raised in a family where this was the time of year when we canned and we canned and then we canned some more. Anything that walked in the door was going to get canned. Green beans, oh yes. Potatoes, oh yes. Any of the leftover berries from the year, and of course, apples and pears. My grandmother made the best candied pears in the world. I've never found any others like them. And figs. All of the things would be canned because, they didn't have those grocery store things everywhere, especially if you live 12 miles from town. And so you better have something on the shelf ready to uncan when it was time for dinner. I never lived in a family that slaughtered our own animals, but when I would go to visit my grandparents on their farm in North Alabama, we always went at hog killing time because my mother wanted us to understand about it. She said, "We don't do this, but this is how people live, and this is how I was raised." I was raised with the idea that these animals that we cared for very carefully throughout the year were being sacrificed, a willing sacrifice, so that we could live again, and so that we could help them with the raising of their families after they were gone. And of course, it's a time of feasting because sometimes you had to use up some stuff that wasn't going to last much longer. So we would have cookouts and big meals, big family meals, and storytelling, because everyone had stories to tell of things in their life. So we would sit around and tell stories to one another. And we would tell stories to our younger siblings and to our children, and we would enhance the stories, because we wanted them to be really exciting, or we wanted them to be really colorful, or we wanted them not to make us look quite so stupid as we actually were when the thing actually happened. So we might enhance it a little bit in the telling. But storytelling is also a big part of this time, mainly because it's a time when people are beginning to gather and be indoors. Now, we know about being indoors. We learned how to be indoors through the last years, and now's a time when we do it voluntarily. We go to each other's homes, we sit around the fire. Maybe we're going to throw something on the Barbie. That happens too. But we're going to tell our stories to one another to remind us of who we are, because we are those stories. And this comes from deep inside us. So this is what Samhain is about as well. It's also a time when gifts were presented to the rulers. We're going to have an election. We're going to give the rulers a gift. Some of them will be returned to power. Some of them will lose power. These are one of the gifts that we're going to give to our rulers just very soon. And in the past, we gave them our arts and crafts, the things that were left over again from last year, because during the winter, we were going to be busy making new ones, knitting new things, painting new things, sculpting, potting, because we were going to be indoors. There was no MTV, no Allen theaters nearby, not even probably a burlesque anywhere nearby. So we had to decide what to do, and we did that by gathering, and then we would sit in circles, sewing circles, or storytelling circles, or net mending circles if you were in a fishing community. And of course, there was always hunting, and then processing the food. And we would also build altars in our home, altars to remember, which contain mementos like photos and clothing and jewelry and candles to help light our way through the gathering darkness. For here there is no binding. Cast off the veils that cloud your sight. In this time of year, with grief, with joy, recall our place and the place of relationships in our lives.
Halloween is a very important time of the year in the Pearson family. Our youngest son was born on October 28th and claimed Halloween for his own personal holiday. It was our kid's second most favorite holiday. Nothing could top Christmas with its 3 different days of family, large meals, and gift exchanges. But even before that, my wife's parents were married on Halloween. And no, I'm not saying my mother-in-law was a witch in the typical way that a husband is supposed to think of his mother-in-law. But I have to say, I have to mention that after the wedding to-do, Rex and Nancy got on a train to start their honeymoon. And after they settled in, Nancy turned to Rex and she said, "Rex, you do know that it's Halloween." And in true Rexford Mason Gillespie style, he responded, "Oh no, I married a witch." But back to Halloween. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November the 1st as a time to honor saints, or All Saints' Day. The evening before All Saints' Day was known as All Hallows' Eve, and later Halloween, that came to incorporate some of the traditions of, I'd really have to stop, Samhain, all right? So yes, Halloween has its roots in the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain that Brooks spoke of. I found some history of some Halloween traditions we still use. The carving of jack-o'-lanterns originated in Ireland using turnips instead of pumpkins. It is allegedly based on a legend about a man named Stingy Jack, who repeatedly trapped the devil and only let him go on the condition that Jack would never go to hell. But when Jack died, he learned that heaven didn't want his soul either. So he was forced to wander the earth as a ghost for eternity. The devil gave Jack a burning lump of coal and a carved turnip to light his way. Locals eventually began carving scary faces in their turnips and to frighten away evil spirits. Seeing ghosts wearing scary costumes and the use of black and orange colors date directly back to the Celts. And so does lighting candles and building bonfires that bring insects, that bring bats. There is much debate around the origin of trick-or-treating, but generally there are three theories. The first theory suggests that during Samhain, Celtic people would leave food out to appease the spirits traveling the earth at night. Over time, people began to dress as these unearthly beings in exchange for similar offerings of food and drink. The second theory speculates that the candy boom stems from the Scottish practice of guising, which is a secular version of souling. During the Middle Ages, generally children and poor adults would collect food and money from the local homes in return for prayers for the dead on All Souls Day. Guisers dropped the prayers in favor of non-religious practices with the inclusions of songs, jokes, and other tricks. The third theory argues that modern American trick-or-treating stems from bell-snickling, a German-American Christmas tradition where children would dress in costume and then call on their neighbors to see if the adults could guess the identities of the disguised. In one version of the practice, the children were rewarded with food and other treats if no one could identify them. The idea of being spooked by black cats dates back to the Middle Ages, when these dark felines were considered a symbol of the devil. It didn't help that centuries later, accused witches were often found to have cats, particularly black ones. People began to believe that the cats were witches' familiar, supernatural entities that would assist in their practice of dark magic, and black cats and spookiness have been linked ever since. The game of bobbing for apples has its origins more rooted in love and romance. The game traces back to courting rituals that were part of the Roman festival honoring Pomona, the goddess of agriculture and abundance. While multiple versions existed, the gist was that young men and women would be able to predict their future relationships based on the game. When the Romans conquered the British Isles in 43 AD, the Pomona festival blended with the similarly timed Samhain. For centuries, people have been coating fruit in syrup as a means of preservation. It is believed that candy apples were invented accidentally in 1908 by William W. Cobb, a candy maker in Newark, New Jersey. As the story goes, Cobb was experimenting with red cinnamon candy to sell at Christmas time, and he dipped apples on a stick into the red glaze and put them in his shop window to showcase his new candy. But instead of selling the candies, he ended up selling the apples to customers who thought they looked good enough to eat. They became fashionable treats in Halloween starting in the early 1900s and have remained popular. Tammy and Lynn, if she's in here. A candy maker at the Wonderly Candy Company in Philadelphia is sometimes credited with invented the tricolored candy in the 1880s. But candy corn did not become a widespread sensation until the Golditz Company brought the candy to the masses in 1898. Candy corn was originally called chicken feed. With the slogan, something worth crowing for. Initially, it was just an autumnal candy because of corn's association with harvest time. Candy corn later became Halloween specific when trick-or-treating grew in popularity in the U.S. during the 1950s. And it inspired candy companies to market small, individually wrapped candies. People began to favor the confections out of convenience, but candy did not dominate at the exclusion of all other treats until the 70s, when parents started fearing anything unwrapped. Today's parents fear their kids receiving anything wrapped or unwrapped from someone they do not know. Pranking. Pranks often vary by regions, but the pre-Halloween tradition known as Devil's Night is credited to a different origin depending on the source. Some say that pranks started out as part of a May Day celebrations, but Samhain and eventually All Souls Day also included good-natured mischief. When Irish and Scottish immigrants came to America, they brought with them the tradition of celebrating Mischief Night as part of Halloween. As with most things, some are going to take it too far. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania has a history of serious mischief, but the more than 30-year history of Devil's Night arson in Detroit, with hundreds of fires occurring each year, became national news. Celts occupied much of Europe and Anatolia, or Asia Minor, and as such, it is understandable that their traditions would pass down to the English, Scotch, Irish, Germanic, Spanish, and Portuguese explorers and settlers who have had major influences in this country's traditions. Samhain, Dia de los Muertos, and Halloween are not the same, but not so different. Okay, Jan?
Well, my name is Jan Thompson, and I am a proud third-generation Unitarian Universalist. This is my third UU congregation, two in Detroit, where I lived for 63 and a half years, and now this one in Las Cruces, where I was transplanted 15 and a half years ago. If you add those numbers up, you can get my age. And I love it here. That there's no snowblower, no lawnmower, no ice pick, and I have this congregation, so it's very nice. I have two early recollections of learning patterns of giving. First, when old enough to go to children's chapel before my Sunday school class at my first church, I would put 5 cents in the collection plate. I only had a 25-cent allowance each week, so it was a sacrifice. And I remember our religious education director, Tilly Moore, telling us in her big Bostonian voice, "Remember the words of Jesus, who said it is more blessed to give than to receive." Every week I heard that. I also remember my father sitting down a couple of times per year to write checks to all the charitable organizations that he wanted to support. My mother said she thought it was a religious practice for him because his chosen charities represented his values. My donations represent my values as well. My largest donation goes to this church because Unitarian Universalism is the foundation for all my values and beliefs. There have been times when I was unable to contribute more than a very few dollars, very few. I felt awful that I couldn't do more because I really wanted to do more. But a wise minister advised me that we are all in this together. I could give my time and talent, mostly time, while others could pick up the slack for me. Now I am in that better position and try to give more than my fair share to cover for those who cannot give. Even though there have been times when I have not been very happy with the church, I have continued to support it, to honor my elders, those pioneers and pilgrims whose shoulders we stand on. I am accountable to those who put so much of themselves into building this church so that I would have a place to support my liberal faith that accepts me as I am and that makes me feel welcomed and a part of a movement for good. Where else in 1992 would I be able to have a ceremony celebrating 5 years with my partner, same sex? The UU Church, of course. We had a celebration with 125 guests. It was in the church. We were all dressed up. We had flowers and music and the whole bit. But it was 2 women letting the world know that we loved each other. When I learned while at the Barrow Neurological Institute in Phoenix that my partner of 25 years was dying, I quickly arranged for an ambulance to bring us back to Las Cruces, where we had our support system, this congregation. Cindy only lived for a few more days after our return, but during that time, the choir came to see her at La Posada Hospice Center to sing Christmas carols. She died on December 23rd. And many, many members and friends came to visit each day. The minister at that time was very helpful to me and stayed with us the night Cindy died. I am grateful to the UU Church, where my children grew up, and I can see how it did so much to help them develop their values. I'm proud of my son, who lives on Social Security disability pay alone, yet manages to make a small pledge to this church, plus put $1 in the plate every Sunday when it comes by him. This morning's service tells us of the traditions of the season, where we are changing from summer to fall, from life to death, back to life to death. We are also in a time of change in Unitarian Universalism and in this congregation. I know we all feel the change. UUA President Reverend Susan Frederick Gray calls this a liminal time, a time in between what was and what will be, a time of both uncertainty and reimagination. Your Board of Trustees is experiencing this liminal time, and we are leaning in with love and to support to get through this challenging time. The ideas you all shared during the Visioning Circle exercises are helping us to reimagine our future. The Finance Committee has developed what they call a wish budget based on a lot of input from committee chairs and leaders of affiliated groups. Budgets should reflect our values, and the wish budget is doing that. Now all we need is for each of us to make as generous a pledge as possible to make it all happen. We have vision, we have ideas, we need financial backing, and we need you to cover for those who cannot make that substantial pledge. We're all in this together.
And now I get to finish my sermon, because I haven't talked about the Day of the Dead, the Dia de los Muertos, because we live in a part of the world where this is very important, because this holiday, this celebration arose in central and southern Mexico over 1,000 years ago, and it was developed from indigenous rituals and practices of Toltec and Mayan peoples. It's celebrated with the focus that mourning and grieving the dead is disrespectful of the lives that they lived. The living should work to keep the memories of the lives of the dead active by speaking of them and honoring their places and contribution to family and community. So why not a feast? Dress in colorful costumes, parade through the streets bearing photos or other objects depicting the dead. Prepare altars in the home showing the beloved's works, clothing, jewelry, and other memorial objects with candles to show the light in the darkness of approaching winter. Have a picnic in the graveyard, using the freshly cleaned site as places to sit and sing and tell stories about those whose bodies now reside below the earth. Unlike Halloween, Dia de los Muertos is not about fear or about frightening others, but is a bright celebration of life that includes memories of those who have died. It is a way of showing the connection point of the great circle that is a symbol of all lives. And just another note about Halloween. One of the reasons that Halloween has the symbols that it has is because it was developed during a time when there was a lot of persecution of people who were different, especially women who were healers, who were midwives, who stood against the patriarchy and claimed power of their own. Their symbols were symbols of darkness. Their symbols were symbols of power, and they were condemned, and they were tortured, and they were killed for their beliefs. So there's a dark side to this celebration as well, but we can reclaim it as a time of joy, as a time of remembering those who have died, including those of our ancestors who died so that we could have the beliefs that we have today. The connection point of the great circle that is a symbol of all lives.
The operations and outreach of our church needs your input and your contributions. This is the perfect time to think about what you can give back. In a moment, the greeters will pass among you with the offering baskets. Please give generously. But before they do that, I should remind you that we support organizations identified by the Social Justice Committee with our Change for Change program. This quarter's recipient for our Change for Change donations is the NAACP of Doña Ana County. You can give to them by putting your change in the basket or by writing Change for Change on the note line in your check. Please give generously. you join us in the closing hymn, number 96, I Cannot Think of Them as Dead?
Our closing words are by Sarah Wright. Fall is the season of the cutting away, a poignant time to celebrate the deepening darkness as we turn inward. I think the powers of the goddess are strongest at this time of year. And here's the poem. Autumn gold stains the maples, beech hay ferns too. Each day a deeper glow, bittersweet, bleeds into lemon, liming veins, scarlet sears a leaf or two. Salmon rose blurs, fir balsam hemlock. Spires reach skyward, forest green needles soak in drops of rain. Fire on the mountain comes late. Frost-filled nights and crimson swamps are still a dream. Earth speaks so concretely about just how fast change is occurring here and everywhere.
All right. There will be a fine dining event. There will be a fine dining event on November 12th at the J. Paul Taylor Detention Center. So far, our menu has spiral cut glazed ham, a green bean casserole, jalapeno cornbread, and deviled eggs. Sherry Brown, Peggy Devlin, Judy Holmes, Elwin Nunn, Lynn Pearson, David Rice, and Sarah Thomas have volunteered to work with me, but no one will be available for every dinner. In order to make this work, we need a larger pool of volunteers who can occasionally attend these dinners. I have reserved December 17 for some sort of Christmas celebration, as this was another thing we used to do for the young men and ourselves. If anyone would like to join in either of these endeavors, please contact me, Haney Pearson. Sometimes we actually make a difference in a young man's life, but we always have a real good time. Additional announcements are on the back of the orders of service, so please check the back of your orders of service. Those on Zoom need only to scroll down just a little bit further. Now, please join me in saying the words to extinguish the flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.